Shaurya is trapped in a 35-story rotten building in India and will starve to death if she doesn't eat cockroaches. In the densely populated India, housing is of paramount importance. Shaurya has a stunningly beautiful girlfriend and wants to bring her home for the night, only to find his place crammed with several men lying around. Then, she tells Shaurya that she has to marry someone else as per her family's wishes. Desperate and broke, he still wants to win her back. So, he goes to a shady broker to rent a house and ends up getting scammed. Naive, he moves into an apartment in an unfinished 35-story building without telling his girlfriend. The first morning, he accidentally locks himself in. He can't open the door, searches for tools, pliers, wrenches, but none could open the door. Shaurya picks up his phone to call for help, but it dies after a few seconds. Turns out, after charging the phone all night, not a bit of power got into it. He tries charging it again. No power. The building's electricity was cut off. Shaurya rushes to the balcony to shout for help, only to realize his voice doesn't carry down from the 35th floor, and in the entire building, he's the only one there. Shaurya cuts his hand and washes it with bottled water he bought the night before. As there's no water in the building, he yells down from his building, shouting all day. By night, his throat is hoarse. Deep into the night, he shouts again, but his voice doesn't carry. Waking up the next day, Shaurya tries to drink water, only to find the water bottle knocked over and open, with no water left. He continues trying to force and smash the door open, to no avail. He had no choice but to take down the TV, dropping it from a great height. But the doorman downstairs didn't hear a thing. Shaurya searches the house, finding some cardboard. He tears it open, squeezes his toothpaste on it, and writes help on 35th floor. Throwing it down, unexpectedly, the cardboard lands on the rooftop. He writes another piece and throws it down, this time landing on another building's terrace. By then, he's out of toothpaste. Shaurya looks everywhere, no paint left. He resorts to reopening his wound, using his blood to write help on 35th floor and throws it down again. This time, it lands somewhere it could be found. Shaurya, now hopeful, starts to wait. Unexpectedly, he ends up waiting until dusk. A woman went to put away her clothes and didn't notice the cardboard at her feet. Late at night, he eats something. Picking up the last biscuit, he suddenly feels something is off. Shining a flashlight, he discovers a rat. He's terrified of rats and runs out, falling in the process. The next day, he's woken up by the sound of water and finds it running, but the sight of a rat's tail keeps him away. He watches helplessly as the water slowly stops, a tear falling from his eye. He continues to write messages in blood, breaking a mirror to cut his finger, using the blood as ink. This time, the message lands near the security guard. The guard picks it up but, being illiterate, looks at it upside down. Shaurya uses tools from the house and the elastic from his underwear to make a slingshot. He keeps shooting stones at the person collecting clothes. She hears it but doesn't pay attention. At night, Shaurya tears more clothes and ties the word help on the balcony railing. But still, no one notices. On the morning of the third day, he was extremely thirsty. He lifted the toilet lid but didn't want to drink the water from the toilet. He tries to drink water from the water heater, but it's empty. In the evening, the clothes collector finally notices the cardboard. She goes down to the apartment and asks the security guard, but the guard is rude and tells her to go away. Concerned, she sneaks upstairs but is quickly scared off by the darkness. The departure of the last hope means he can no longer get help from the outside. He must rely on himself to be seen by those downstairs. He starts a fire in the apartment, burning the cloth strips on the windowsill. Will a help written in fire be noticed? The fire isn't big enough, so he moves the mattress out and sets it on fire. He becomes happy, but the joy lasts only 2 seconds before the fire spreads to the sofa. Now he can't escape and is at risk of burning alive. He desperately tries to extinguish the fire, and after a whole night's effort, the fire is out, but so is his hope. In this world, people are either so indifferent that they no longer notice the flames, or so lowly that they no longer look up. Shaurya is very hungry and thirsty, starting to hallucinate. Seeing cockroaches, he hesitates about eating them. He decides to look for his last bit of biscuits, but the bag is empty, eaten by the rat. Shaurya and the rat lock eyes. He finally has to face his greatest fear head on. On the fourth day, he goes into the kitchen and finds the rat gone, but with no water left. He resorts to urinating in a pot. After taking a sip, he vomits from the disgust. Fainting, he watches a cockroach struggling to flip over on the ground, debating whether to eat it or not. Shorya eventually pulls back his hand and gets up. Just then, he notices it has started to rain outside. The drinking problem is finally solved. Now onto the issue of food. On the 5th day, he starts using the slingshot to hunt birds, targeting a small pigeon on the windowsill. After hesitating a few times, he finally hits it with the slingshot. Shorya, a vegetarian, had never killed living creatures nor eaten meat before. He recalls the debates he had with his girlfriend. He argued that eating meat was sinful and would eventually lead to retribution. Their arguments grew more intense. Shorya never expected that karma wouldn't befall those who ate meat but would come upon himself instead. This steadfast vegetarian, amidst screams, finally skinned the pigeon and later started to roast it. Stepping away for a moment, the pigeon was eaten by a rat. Enraged, Shorya chased and attacked the rat for the first time. He finally caught it, slamming it to the ground. Later, Shorya ate the contaminated piece of pigeon meat, something he had never consumed in his life. The rat, though, he kept in a cage. Though he despised it, he refused to eat it. After catching it, he even talked to it, treating it as his only friend in solitude. On the 6th day, he used a mirror to look down at the nearby floors from his building. He discovered that the 30th floor had no railing and knew he had to rely on himself to get out. He continued to hunt birds, tying the slingshot to his head. He picked up ants and put them in his mouth, then started to cut through the railing. If cutting didn't work, he'd try burning it. If burning failed, he'd continue cutting, and if that didn't work, he'd kick it. He finally felt like he was going to die. People below were so close, yet he would never be seen or heard again. So, he released the rat, which looked back at him before slowly walking away. On the 7th day, he wakes up to find the cockroach dead. Dressed in his clothes and shoes, he goes to the balcony, kicking the railing with all his might. Shorya decides not to wait any longer. He crawls out through the gap in the railing. Now on the 7th day, drinking water induces vomiting, and his fire-starting materials are nearly exhausted. Stuck in this crappy building any longer, sooner or later you're going to get sick and die. He starts to climb down, bit by bit. Finally, he manages to descend 5 floors, but then comes the real challenge. On the 30th floor, he finds he can no longer climb down. There's no platform to stand on, nowhere to leverage himself. He must quickly climb back up, or falling would mean certain death. He's caught in a dilemma. Going down could lead to death, and going up offers no chance of survival. After much thought, fear grows with every moment he ponders. Every second he stays, his chances of survival diminish. Suddenly, he comes up with an idea. He unbuckled his belt, tied it around the lowest railing joint, then wrapped it a few times around his left hand, gripping the belt tightly before attempting to descend. But can the belt really hold up? With that little length of the belt, he finally manages to step onto a railing, but there was no balcony floor on this level, so he could only move around a little bit. Eventually, he reaches his destination, but the balcony door won't open. He wobbles towards the door. Since the elevator has no power, he must walk down the stairs step by step, feeling increasingly unstable. At last, he arrives at the ground floor, passing the security guard without saying a word. Days later, his girlfriend learns of his ordeal and visits him in the hospital. After a long absence, their reunion feels like a lifetime apart. He remains silent for a long time, reaching out to touch her hand, but she withdraws hers. He understands. She has married someone else. Perhaps this is the greatest loneliness of being human. Even after you've survived the toughest years and overcome the most terrifying trials, the person you care most about isn't willing to listen to your pain. The greatest distance in the world isn't the height of 35 floors, but after you've gone through hell and high water to get to her, she turns and walks away. In the end, Shorya continues to live, work, practice his vegetarianism, and remain alone. It seems like nothing has changed, but has nothing really changed? Later, He went back to that 35-story rotting building, looked at the railing that he had kicked off, and he smiled. Once, a Shorya stood here, but now, it's a man who stands in his place.